Hi, Mickey.
Hey, Bob.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I don't know why, given the chaos that's engulfing Washington, but I'm in California, so I'm doing fine.
Plus, there's high entertainment value. But I think you're being a little presumptuous here, Mickey, because you seem to be assuming that you need no introduction. Whereas the truth is that you so rarely grace this website anymore that some of our younger viewers and listeners need to hear the backstory. They may not realize that you are a co-founder of Blogging Heads, who at some point...
It's like the Monica Lewinsky scandal. The millennials don't know about it, so they had to be reintroduced to it.
I often think of you and the Lewinsky scandal in the same thought bubble. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we're both from Beverly Hills. So
is that true? I was at a party in New York that she was at. I did not strike up a conversation with her.
Great. Anyway, I was a technical co-founder of Blogging Heads, but you did all the work. So
nice of you to say that, but you were essential. Of course, this was before you drifted so far right that we have something to talk about here, which is your support for Trump. I mean, there was always this kind of left-right tension between you and me, but you claimed to be a big D Democrat and said you were liberal, although you did have a certain, what I would call, inordinate interest in the immigration issue. And now you've actually voted for Trump, right?
I'd still claim I'm a Democrat and a liberal.
Okay.
So there.
So you would call then Trump is the candidate for liberal Democrats in your judgment?
I like Trump, as you know, for three reasons. Mainly immigration. I thought if we restricted immigration as we did for 40 crucial years in the 20th century, that wages would rise at the bottom, which seems to be the most important economic problem we face. Second, I like the fact that he was resisting neocon impulses on foreign policy, as he has done. We'll get to that. And thirdly, I liked his pledge to protect entitlements because it seemed to me in an era where everybody's clinging by a thread and uncertain about their future in the economy, that the net of entitlements was the only structure they had to cling to, and he seemed to intuitively realize that.
Okay.
So none of those are anti-liberal sentiments.
Okay, so let's talk a little about Trump. We're going to eventually get to this thing that I'm going to launch called Mindful Resistance, but we want to keep people in suspense. And I want to ask first, have you found any grounds for disenchantment with Donald Trump?
Oh, sure, I'm disenchanted. I mean, my line on Trump, I think, was always, I don't think he's a good guy. He's not a hero. He has some good influences. He's smart. He's funny, but he's crazy. And but my only argument was that the country will be better off for having elected him, and not better off because he provokes a resistance that's, that then wins and takes the country to a better place. I mean, better off for the things he does while he's president. And so far, he hasn't quite contradicted that. If he sells out on immigration, of course he will contradict it. Immigration is my main reason for thinking the country is going to be better off. Illegal entries into the country are down by some measures 70%. There is no other candidate of the 18 or 20 people who are running who would have produced that result. So that's a positive thing. Fewer people are dying trying to cross the border, even with this Texas truck tragedy, than before, because fewer people are trying to cross the border.
Well, I mean, come on. The concern was never about people dying crossing the border. But
I'm just saying that there's a lot of attempt to use the Texas truck
but what I would say, I don't want to get into
propaganda purposes.
I don't want to get into a big immigration.
Propaganda is wrong because fewer people are dying.
I don't want to get into a big debate, but I would say that oddly, although I'm not a big fan of a wall, building a wall would be a more humane approach than the one he's taken. The approach he's taken is to lead a lot of people who are already in the United States to live in fear. And that has part and parcel of the way, fear that if they go down to the 7-Eleven, they'll wind up in jail. And that is part and parcel of what has lowered the immigration. A wall, I think, would be more humane than that because it wouldn't lead the many people who are already here, to have.
Well,
that fear.
he's trying to build the wall. B, if you say to people in the interior they're home free, as the one of the enforcement official said at a press conference this morning, that's a huge magnet. So you can't tell people, as Obama did, that if you're in the interior, you can breathe easy. You can go to the 7-Eleven. There's nothing's going to harm you. They're here illegally. If you're here illegally, you have to live in some measure of fear. That's the point of having a law, is that if you're on the wrong side of the law, you worry about being on the wrong side of the law. Otherwise, you don't have a law. So they'll never produce the Bob Wright nirvana where everybody who's here illegally is at peace. And people not being in peace.
Well, I don't want to.
What deters people from coming in the first place?
I don't want to do a big debate, but there are things you could do. You know, you could do like E-Verify, and you could step up border enforcement. There's things you could do.
Those are all great things. So you're signing on for the whole package. That's great.
I'm just saying that there are versions of immigration control that are more humane than what he's doing. That's all I'm saying. But I don't want to get into big.
Even E-Verify doesn't. Even E-Verify tells people, even if you do E-Verify for new hires, that tells people who are working on existing jobs, illegals who are working on existing jobs, that they can't switch jobs. So even that produces some measure of fear.
Mm-hmm. So on the second two, so entitlements. I mean, now you're saying that you would expect him to support, to build and sustain a firm safety net? I mean, that I assume you've given up on that totally. I mean, obviously, like in the case of healthcare, he'll just sign any bill that has Republican stamped on it and will get through Congress. He obviously has no concern for like what kind of health care poor people are getting.
Yeah. Well, let's separate this into three areas. There's immigration, where he's doing okay, but there's a huge question mark over whether he and his son-in-law Jared will engineer a big sellout. Okay, that's the worry. Two, foreign policy. He does seem to have resisted the neocon impulses in Syria.
Well,
we can talk about that.
No,
whoa.
No, that's. I understand what you are saying. There's an impulse. There's a thing he's doing that's annoying him, but by and large, he's doing what neocons most applaud, which is exacerbating tensions with their bête noire, Iran. He's chomping at the bit to throw away the nuclear deal and doing various other things that could actually not only do away with that deal, but actually lead to war with Iran. And Unfortunately, by the way, I just want to add, unfortunately, it's not just the neocons. It so happens that the so-called adults in the room, McMaster, Mattis, for their own reasons, they have deep anti-Iran animus that I would say is, especially in Mattis's case, flat out manifestly irrational, almost to the point of literally crazy. But so, I mean, he is, he's the neocons are far from universally disappointed with this man. I assure you. And the Syria strike in response to chemical weapons, he got universal applause from the Blob in Washington, liberal interventionists and neocons. He is not doing what he said he would do in the campaign.
Okay,
I want to qualify that because he did have this weird anti-Iran thing during the campaign that actually didn't mesh with his claims to be generally realistic in his foreign policy and non-interventionist. But whatever, he is no big enemy of the neocons on foreign policy.
I was just providing the overarching framework. Okay.
Okay.
There are three categories: immigration, foreign policy, and the third is legislation. Okay. I take your objections to the foreign policy component. The third component, legislation, he made a huge mistake by throwing in his lot with Paul Ryan and Reince Priebus and the traditional establishment Republicans who do not care about the safety net. In fact, Ryan's obsession is with, voucherizing and block granting everything in sight.
Right, but do you agree that if he cared about the safety net, he would not have thrown his lot in with them?
Well, he has protected two parts of the safety net, Medicare and Social Security. He also said he would protect Medicaid, and he has not protected that. He never said he would protect the Obamacare exchanges. So he didn't promise that. And I don't think
but Medicaid, I mean, if you're talking about his supposed constituency of like blue-collar workers in middle America, if they lose their jobs and fall on truly hard times, Medicare's not going to help them. Social Security's not going to help them because they're not old yet. They need Medicaid.
Right. Well, he said he would protect Medicaid a couple of times, and he should protect Medicaid, and I don't understand why the Medicaid cuts are still in the bill, except, to, in theory, to appeal to some, I guess, conservative House Republicans and also to Speaker Ryan. But they're not in the skinny bill that is being considered now in the Senate. The skinny bill has dropped the Medicaid parts, and the fear on the left is that the skinny bill will be passed by the House. All the skinny bill does is get rid of the mandate for Obamacare.
I think you're searching for a much more coherent explanation of his behavior than he warrants. I mean, he just said, like, wait, which is winning? If you get the bill passed or you don't? And they said, well, winning is when you get the bill passed. And he said, oh, well, then I want that bill. I mean, it's about that simple.
No, again, Bob, my claim is only that the country will be better off for having elected him. It's not that he will follow a coherent policy.
But if the guy
I'm saying that the policy that we end up with will probably be good, and it looks like they're not going to screw around that much with Medicaid. That is a good thing that they don't do that. I don't care whether he's pissed about that, or if he intends it, or if he just wants to win. All I'm saying is the end result will be better for America. The current bill that's before the Senate finally jettisons the Medicaid cuts. It is possible they will come back. The House, Paul Ryan obviously wants them. A lot of conservatives want them, but they're wildly unpopular. So you wouldn't think that they would make it through the Senate.
Yeah, but I mean, if you wind up with a good bill, it's not like because of Trump. I mean, I
don't care if it's because of Trump.
Well, then how can you say that
Trump is a grand seer? My argument is that given the array of forces coming down on the country now, the Trump presidency will be good for America. If it doesn't result in Medicaid cuts and it protects Social Security, which he has done, it will be good for America. I don't understand what's hard to understand.
But Mickey, the other candidate would have done at least as good on all these. I mean, it's not like Hillary Clinton was going to scrap Social Security. In fact, I think she was with either Medicare or with Medicare. I guess she was going to move the age of eligibility lower. I don't understand. I mean, that's just not grounds for voting for this guy. I mean, that's why maybe he's not as bad. What?
Hillary Clinton might have been as good on entitlements, but she would have been terrible on immigration. So that's why I opposed her.
Oh, she would have been better. She wouldn't let Medicare get scrapped the way he's perfectly prepared to happen. If that's part of a bill that'll pass, he'll sign it.
I said immigration, not Medicare.
Oh, okay. Well,
she would not have produced the 70% drop in illegals trying to get into America.
Okay, but I thought you were defending him just
more
now.
More likely, she would have produced a doubling of illegals.
I thought you were defending him on the entitlements front. Did I just hallucinate for the last 5 minutes?
No, but you said, why wasn't I for Hillary? And I said, yes, entitlements are only one of the three bins. She ties Trump on entitlements and loses on immigration. Therefore, Trump is better.
No, it's not a tie on entitlements.
And
Mickey, she would never contemplate the bills he has been perfectly willing to sign if they had gotten through the Senate and been reconciled with the House.
But they're not going to get through the Senate.
That reduced Medicaid. She would never do that.
We're not judging on good intentions. Anyway, she's susceptible to all sorts of budget-cutting gimmicks that might be bad, too. Plus, she's very susceptible to health care rationing, which I think is a really bad thing.
The point...
I'm not sure that she's a win-win on entitlements. I agree that it's a good idea to lower the Medicare age to 55. I still claim that Trump is not averse to that eventually. It's just he's cast his lot stupidly with Paul Ryan at the moment.
Okay.
I'm hoping that at some point he...
Now, I think the area where you'd have a strong argument that she might not be any better is foreign policy. She might not be any better. She might be worse. That was the one area where he would say things that sometimes appealed to me, but it turns out he's not committed to them in any kind of serious way either. He's just kind of bouncing around and what.
Okay, he's incoherent, but clearly Hillary would have a more forceful presence in the Ukraine, which I'm not sure is such a great thing, and she would also she would buy McMaster's plan to have troops in Syria to affect somehow affect the balance of power and prevent Assad from gaining control of territory in some ambiguous, not entirely coherent goal.
No,
and those are bad things.
That one little thing I like, but on balance, he is more likely to lead the nuclear deal with Iran to be scrapped and more likely to lead to war in the Middle East. I mean, this crazy thing of like jumping on Saudi Arabia's side in their little war with, I mean, not literal war with Qatar. Not even, I mean, he didn't even apparently know that we have a huge military base in Qatar when he did that. And, you know, I mean, he's just a bull in a china shop on the international stage. It's just the sheer randomness is just too dangerous.
It's a little like the plot of Voodoo Safe from Drowning or Down and Out from Beverly Hills. Down and Out in Beverly Hills. He's the Nick Nolte character who wanders homeless into the household and starts messing things up. But of course, the plot of those movies is that things wind up better.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you about just the recent. You know, in addition to this, there's like just the daily weirdness. It's like every month I think this couldn't get weirder. Every month it gets weirder. So like just
daily weirdness. There's minute by minute weirdness. I'm watching my cell phone now to see who in the White House is stabbing who in the White House in the back.
Yeah, well, let's take that. I mean, what's his name? Scaramucci?
Yes.
The case for using Mooch is not having to know how to spell his actual full name. Yeah, I mean, this bizarre stuff. Yeah, let's just take this week's bizarreness. Well, let's start with the Boy Scouts. Did that bother you at all, that he turns the Boy Scouts into a political rally?
It seems to me that if you hire Trump as speaker, you're going to get Trump. He's going to talk about whatever the hell he wants.
They didn't hire him. They had a tradition of inviting the president if they could get the president to come.
I agree that if Obama did that, the right would go crazy. I haven't even followed the Boy Scouts. It's so trivial compared with what else is going on.
I'm not sure it is.
But if Obama was as honest as Trump and spoke directly from his id, the way Trump does, that would be a valuable public service. The problem with Obama, one of the problems is he rarely did that.
I thought you were going to say the problem is he didn't have an id.
No, of course he has an id.
Oh, yeah?
But,
So,
maybe not as...
So, okay, that... And then there's the two things. This weird business of, like, with Sessions of, you know, trying to publicly humiliate him into resigning, which is, you got to admit, that's kind of unusual.
It's unusual, but I just realized something about that, which is there's method in his madness.
Oh, I know, because...
If you assume that what he really wants to do is fire Mueller,
right?
He has to somehow get a new AG in there if he fires Sessions. If he fires Sessions, he's not going to get the new AG because the Senate will stay in session and he won't be able to get a recess appointment.
Right.
So he'll have to go through the normal channels and they'll be pissed off. So it's going to take him forever to get a new AG.
But if Sessions quits...
If Sessions quits, there's something called the Vacancy Something Act that lets him appoint a new AG from a list of people who are previously confirmed by the Senate. And I didn't have time to click on the link to see who was on that list. It's a very limited list, but Rick Perry is on that list. So he could bring in Rick Perry as the new AG, and Rick Perry could fire Mueller. I don't know where that gets him, because the House and Senate will then reamp up their investigations and maybe hire Mueller as some sort of special counsel.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I suspect Mueller as a special counsel now has more powers than the House and Senate do, so maybe Trump accomplishes something with that, but he certainly doesn't end the specter hanging over his administration, which, I mean, he claims he has nothing to fear, so I don't quite understand. I guess I would be annoyed if somebody had free-floating power to investigate all my finances too.
I don't see.
And Trump has a bigger field for.
I don't see how Trump could possibly not have a lot to fear and be as bizarrely exercised over the recusal as he is. I mean, he's obviously got something to hide. He's scared to death of this investigation.
Well,
and it may be something financial. It may be something with Russians. Who knows? It may be both.
a couple of points. The Russian thing, there's still sort of nothing much there. There was this meeting with Don Jr., and it's hard for me to believe that this comical meeting with Don Jr., which was like amateur hour, was the Russians' big play to get to Trump. If it was the Russians' big play, that means they hadn't gotten to Trump before, which is weird if you're an anti-Trumper. And why go through Don Jr. if you have Paul Manafort, an old pro at selling out to Russia, right there? So it doesn't make any sense. And I think a year from now, the Don Jr. thing will seem like a comical episode. Either a comical episode because there was a real connection that we've discovered between Trump and Russia, or because it was a pathetic non-story.
Yeah.
What there might be, he has a big empire. If you set Robert Mueller, free in that to play around in that empire, he's going to find something illegal.
Easily.
And it might be involving, one of his relatives. It might be involving Jared. Maybe Trump.
Well, I think, clearly Trump has been involved in money laundering. The question is whether it was his legal obligation to not be. Whether what degree of due diligence they demand of landlords or the real estate magnates who help people launder the money, and whether they can show that he was aware of money laundering. There's that.
Right. And Jared has this, huge building on Fifth Avenue that he needs $1 billion loan for. I think we've talked about that. So one wonders.
But I wouldn't say.
How he's trying to get that.
I have myself been skeptical on ever finding any kind of smoking gun on the Russia collusion, and I agree that this meeting, it wasn't as much as people made it out to be, and there are a couple of explanations of what was actually happening. Obviously, the Russians at this meeting were not Putin's A-team. I certainly hope they weren't, for Putin's for the sake of the Putin regime. But but there's a couple explanations. One is that people who know this business say, well, the Kremlin sometimes sends out these kind of feelers who are definitely not obviously connected with the government. B, the oligarchs are, to some extent, it's a fluid thing apparently. The oligarchs sometimes act on their own. And they are their own interest group, and the oligarchs hate the Magnitsky Act. And so this could have been a somewhat autonomous initiative on their part. On the other hand, they tend to be close enough to Putin, and this guy was definitely had a connection to Putin. The rock stars, the pop star's father, oligarch. And he would not have done something that Putin wouldn't have approved of, right? So it could be a little of both. It's like his initiative, but at the same time, if it turns out that these guys are willing to play ball, the Putin finds out. And remember that, the problem, it's to my mind, collusion per se in this context is not a crime. There's no crime known as collusion except in antitrust law, which is a different thing. And so people keep talking about collusion, but it seems to me the scandalous thing would be a quid pro quo where the Russians say, look, we can help you get elected if you will agree to repeal these sanctions. Right. That, I don't know what the law is on that, but that's outrageous regardless of whether it's Russia or any other country. And that is the kind of communication that could have gotten accomplished at that meeting. Those signals could well have gotten sent and we would not know.
But there's no evidence that they were sent. It seems.
Well, right. What we have Manafort's notes. He's not stupid. He's not going to write it down.
But there are all these people, CIA types, saying, "Oh, I've talked to agents. This is the textbook Russian outreach effort." Well, first, the theory was that Trump was owned by the Russians lock, stock, and barrel from the beginning. So why are they making their outreach effort only the week after he cinches the nomination? That doesn't make any sense at all. Second,
they started taking him seriously, but
it's
anyway.
much more likely that this is what it seems to be, which is an attempt by an oligarch who hates the Magnitsky Act to have his lawyer lobby for getting rid of the Magnitsky Act, and they use this sort of trick they have of they think that they have Hillary donors who have violated the laws of Russia.
Yeah.
And this insane idea that somehow Trump can use this against Hillary, and it's an amateurish, obsessive, rump effort, and that's what it was. And it could be,
but it could be a little of both, where signals got sent, and this oligarch knows enough to know that if he could report to Putin that these guys are ready to play ball, that would be a gold star. That could be the case.
But that implies that they weren't playing ball already, which is shocking if you have the negative view of Trump that all my friends have.
Well,
I mean, he has Paul Manafort working for them. What does Putin need to go through Don? It makes no sense.
Well, I wondered the very same thing, and one thing I wondered is, well, maybe they thought Don Jr. was a direct line to Trump. I mean, maybe they didn't want Manafort to show up at this meeting. I don't know. I'm not really... I tend to think that the Russia thing has been overplayed by the resistance all along to at least some extent. On the other hand, there's definitely something Trump is hiding. There's definitely something he does not want investigated. It may be in the strictly financial realm. It may be... I mean, it's interesting that he asked Comey to drop the Flynn investigation. Now, the Flynn investigation wasn't going to lead very directly to his personal finances, I don't think. The Flynn investigation was going to lead to Russia. And that was a high priority item for him, to end that investigation.
Well, that means that he might just... I mean, it seems to me there's a slim possibility, but it's still a live possibility, that he's innocent and he's annoyed that this guy is rummaging around in his personal business, and he wants to protect his guy Flynn.
Yeah.
Who's his buddy, and he feels loyal to him. It seems, and then that's why he hated
Trump. Oh, give me a break. You have a much higher opinion of him than I do. Look, what? He's loyal to Flynn? You mean the way he's loyal to Jeff Sessions for Sessions' early and earnest support? Yeah, he's a really loyal guy.
Well, Flynn's been with him longer than Sessions, but let's talk about Sessions. I'm in the pro Sessions camp. I think he's been essential to Trump's appeal to immigration restrictionists. He was also very helpful in his election in giving the sort of stamp of approval, and I also was counting on him as the normal guy who would keep Trump from going insane. Trump is pissed at him in theory because he recused himself,
which
I'm
the
not
law,
sure he had,
the law compelled him.
Let me finish.
Yeah,
I'm not sure he had to recuse himself.
The law is clear.
But even the people who say he doesn't have, I'm not sure it would have made any difference. Because if he hadn't recused himself, Trump would have still fired Comey. And the end result, I think, is still we would have gotten a special prosecutor to investigate at least the Flynn incident. And that could be expanded. Or else the House would have taken it over and somehow either forced a special prosecutor or had one themselves. So Trump is essentially blaming Sessions for his own mistake in firing Comey, at the behest of, egged on by his son-in-law Jared Kushner.
Well, no, but isn't Trump thinking if he had fired Comey without the recusal, Sessions himself would not have appointed a special investigator?
Right, but even the people who think that Sessions clearly had to recused himself from the Flynn investigation. Andrew McCarthy of the National Review. I agree that Eric Holder would not have recused himself, and Eric Holder would not have allowed the appointment of a special prosecutor. So Obama's guy would have protected Obama, as he did. So Trump is saying, why can't I have the protection from my attorney general that Obama had from his attorney general? And I understand why, in his self-pitying rage, that he would have this thought, egged on by his Iago, Jared Kushner. But, in the larger frame of things, big mistake
and by the way, does that tell us that Kushner has something to hide? The fact that this is also important to him?
I don't know. Kushner could be... The alternative is that Kushner is a globalist who all he cares about is brand, and he wants to sell out on immigration. And in order to sell out on immigration, he has to get rid of Sessions and get rid of all his opponents in the administration, including Bannon. And this is just a means to get to that, stoking Trump's self-pity about the investigation. Mm-hmm. So clearly, Jared is big on self-pity. Remember when his father was convicted of an incredibly sordid scheme of witness tampering in New Jersey, involving hiring a prostitute to sleep with his brother-in-law and sending the tape to his sister, just really unbelievable stuff. Jared's reaction was how ungrateful they were to turn against his father, who had done so much for them. Yeah. So Jared is big on self-pity, excusing crimes. So he's perfectly capable of stoking that self-pity in Trump to his own ends, or maybe because there were crimes. I don't know.
So I would think, two things I would think you would find alarming lately that would tend to reinforce my own point that Trump has very little in the way of actual ideological commitment. One, he wants to get rid of Sessions, who, if nothing else, is committed to the ideology that Trump professed to hold during the election, A. B, he appoints Scaramucci as clearly, it's becoming clear, much more than a communications director, right? Right. Scaramucci, I'm starting to think, is like Trump's lead thug, right? And I just want to say, Scaramucci, ideologically, to the extent that we can figure anything out about what he actually believes, it's closer to the opposite of what Trump professed to believe. And he also didn't think highly of Trump himself. Across the board, a couple of years ago, right, Scaramucci was, pro-choice, pro-free trade. You can just go down the line, and he's like anti-Trump, in addition to being literally anti-Trump, against Trump. And Trump hires him. What does that say about Trump's ideological commitment?
Well, he's a Jared hire, so he fits in with the conspiracy theory that Jared is using him to get rid of his enemies, and he's behaving. He was incredibly skilled initially in terms of talking about Trump. He realized that it didn't make any sense to lie. Just admit, yes, Trump is mad at Sessions. He might fire him. Just admit that. But he now seems to have sort of gone either he's let that power go to his head, or sort of Jared has ordered him to get rid of the enemies, because he's now throwing his weight around a little prematurely in an unproductive way, sort of trying to, get rid of Reince Priebus and who knows who else. And so Newt Gingrich has emerged as the voice of sanity, bizarrely.
Yeah, but
and said that Scaramucci's out of control.
But don't you
this
think
could all be obsolete by the time we go onto the air? It could have been like the final scene of Titus Andronicus. They could all have killed each other by the time this thing airs.
But don't you think that Scaramucci is, in fact, with this anti-Priebus, this very public anti-Priebus initiative, is in fact not freelancing? I think this guy clearly knows which side his bread is buttered on, and if he had not gotten signals from Trump that, yeah, we're fine with a war on Priebus, I don't think it would be happening. I'm not saying it was quite completely explicit, but I cannot believe... Scaramucci seems pretty smart. He seems to know how to read Trump. And I've got to think that this essentially has Trump's approval, what he's doing to Priebus.
That makes sense. I'm not going to argue against
and that's what I meant when I said he's more than a communications director. He's like serving as like Trump's enforcer.
Well, everybody expects him. The press, most of the press expect him to eventually be chief of staff, unless he explodes, like a planet or something, or unless he destroys himself by moving so quickly. But he could also be taking orders from Jared. Who the heck knows? Trump could also just like to have them fighting with each other. But I think your interpretation is probably the most plausible.
Yeah.
Trump wants Priebus out, but he can't fire him directly. So he's having Scaramucci do the dirty work. I don't understand why Scaramucci hasn't turned on Bannon. I guess he's next after Priebus goes.
Well, I think Bannon, again, it's consistent with my view, because I think Bannon is closer to being in Trump's good graces right now than Priebus is. I think that's the answer. Bannon, I guess his movement back into Trump's good graces, well, you tell me, but he was skeptical of the wisdom of firing Comey. Kushner, bless his heart, thought it was a good idea. Isn't that when Bannon started to work his way back into Trump's heart, with that being a good call?
No, I don't think so.
Well,
I think
but Bannon has. But there was a point when we thought Bannon was going to be the next guy fired, right? That's no longer
right.
the case.
No, I agree, and he's wormed his way back, and now he's apparently supposed to be lying low because he's not in good graces anymore. But I don't think he did himself any good as a career move by being right about Comey. Nobody likes the guy that's right. They always hate the guy that's right because they feel guilty and they justify. That's what's going. That's a whole obvious explanation for what Trump is doing. That
wait, just
Bannon?
I just had an epiphany.
Comey, it was a disaster, so he's going to punish Bannon.
Okay.
I mean, Chester Bowles was right about Vietnam. Okay, he was iced out of the Johnson administration for that.
And I was right about the Iraq War, and look at where I am. Your theory makes total sense.
Exactly. You're the victim here, Bob.
So, none of this has made you rethink. I mean, are you moving closer to turning on Trump? None of this is not. You're still fine. You're still fine.
I'm still on board. It's if he fires Sessions, I'll have to. That'll be a big problem.
Who is? Is there anybody who's close to jumping ship? Ann Coulter? Anybody?
Everybody who in sort of my neck of the woods, we want to be honest about Trump's failings, but they haven't jumped ship yet. I mean, there are things that would make me jump ship. Nobody cares if I jump ship. But I still think, on balance, so far, the country's better off for having elected him.
Wait, didn't somebody in a New York Times column say that Trump should hire you as an advisor? Who was that? Was that David Brooks or somebody? Who said that?
It was Russ Douthat, and I'm not sure it was actually in a column. Maybe it was in a column.
It was in a column. That was in the physical newspaper, Mickey. Congratulations.
There you go.
How did that work out in the end?
My phone hasn't stopped ringing.
Yeah. So, well, all of this.
So we haven't talked about foreign policy, or we have a bit.
No, we haven't. Much less mindful resistance. But we did talk about foreign policy. We did. I mean, I said, the guy is going to lead us to war with Iran if we're not careful.
I don't have that much argument with you. All I'm saying is, the neocons have come out with their various critiques of what he did in Syria. Oh, we should have, trained our own resistance fighters abroad and reinserted them in Syria to fight Assad, and their net result wouldn't be a win because they couldn't possibly win. It would somehow keep the carnage going. And all these plans seem totally insane to me. And so I give Trump points for resisting them.
So you don't think regime change worked out well in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Libya?
I thought Obama wrote checks that he couldn't cash, and that was a huge mistake.
Yeah, I was being sarcastic.
I understand, but I'm...
Yeah, no, I'm with you. But I think the neocons are kind of having it both ways now. They're actually happy with a certain amount of what Trump is doing on foreign policy. But they are remaining in the anti-Trump camp and building up political capital. And
who is this?
What? And by continuing to put the heat on him in Russia, that makes it less likely that he will stray from their path on Russia. Right. In fact, that may be why we had the Syria missile strike, is because he had to show that he'll stand up to these Russians and isn't in fact their slave. So I think things are working out well for the neocons.
I guess that could be true. They do seem upset about Syria, and
parts of it.
It's not completely clear that they will manage to Mau him into stronger action in Eastern Europe.
Yeah, but I think they're fine with him getting on Saudi Arabia's side, because to be on Saudi Arabia's side is to be against Iran, and he is manifestly against Iran in a lot of ways. That part is fine with him.
Although I don't have a disagreement with anything you said, really.
Yeah. So
I thought it was interesting that Poland apparently pulled itself back from the brink of authoritarianism. And so that people like David Frum and Ann Applebaum, who were very, very worried about this, had to not be worried for a while, or be worried less. It was a setback for the there's an authoritarian impulse in the world that Trump represents horribly evil.
Wait, I missed that. What was the setback?
There were these reforms in Poland that were going to destroy the independence of the judiciary that passed their legislature, but there were huge demonstrations, and the president
vetoed them. Yeah,
decided not to sign them. Yeah,
yeah.
So if you had the dark view of Poland descending into the nightmare of authoritarianism, it's at least temporarily in advance.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think of this mindful resistance thing?
I don't even know what mindfulness is. People tell me it's Buddhism stripped of its religious aspect so it can be sold to the masses.
No, mindfulness is an authentic part of Buddhism. I mean, now that's a separate question whether mindfulness as it's being practiced today is exactly like mindfulness in ancient times. But I mean, some of the earliest texts are, the Satipatthana Sutra is a manifesto about mindfulness meditation. The word sati has been translated as mindfulness. And,
what is mindfulness?
What?
What is mindfulness?
Well, I would say the part of it, the part that is emphasized today that is certainly not explicit in the ancient texts is like living in the moment.
Right.
On the other hand, it's kind of implicit in the ancient texts because if you do the meditation described in the ancient texts, people may be wondering what the hell we're talking about. How do we get from Trump to mindfulness? The answer is I'm starting something called the mindful resistance, but we'll get to that. Anyway, also...
You're right. You have a big book on Buddhism coming out.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that. And look, it happens to be right here, Mickey. Have you seen the jacket?
That is the context in which we're having this discussion.
What do you think of the jacket?
I can't see it, but I'm sure it's beautiful. I liked it. I liked the design before.
Can't you? You can't see me right now?
I could see half of your face, one eye.
That's kind of strange. I think you need to move like a browser window on your screen.
I know, but I'm scared to touch anything. Let's just keep going.
I'm sorry to hear that. It's a handsome jacket. Anyway, so mindfulness, and there's a lot of the things you hear, like don't be hard on yourself is often said by mindfulness teachers. That's you don't really find that in the text, but what you do find that's preserved in serious mindfulness practice today is stabilizing your mind, often by focusing on your breathing. In this ancient text on mindfulness, the first thing they say is focus on your breathing, and then having stabilized your mind so that you can pay attention to things. You pay attention to the various things. It can be sounds, it can be bodily sensations, feelings, thoughts. But it is I think the most important part is observing the inner workings of your mind carefully in a way that's just not possible if you don't sit down and meditate. And it gives you a vantage point on feelings, especially, I think, and thoughts and so on, that can help liberate you from slavish obedience to them. So that's
okay.
Not all of that is explicit in the text, but in the early text. But there's no doubt that it is like a systematic focus on successively on these different parts of your awareness as you meditate, and
it's very Freudian. You're making the subconscious conscious so you can control it.
Well, you're making the barely conscious conscious. In other words, your feelings, you can feel them as you go through life. Like if you just stop and pay attention, you'll notice them, but you won't notice the subtle ones probably. And you won't see them with anything like the kind of clarity that you can get normally by meditating on them. But it is what it has in common with Freud is the idea that by understanding the forces that control you, you can be liberated from them.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway.
Okay, so how does that translate into resistance to Trump?
Well, it starts with the fact that I have long worried that the resistance to Trump is a little too reflexively obedient to emotion.
It's totally too. That's one of that. The standard cycle is Trump does something outrageous.
Right.
The resistance overreacts.
Right.
People say, "Hell, they're overreacting. I'm still with Trump."
Right. Right. I mean, and that's part of what I mean by mindful resistance. I mean, I'm not saying this is only for people who meditate. I do think that meditation would make you less likely to overreact to Trump and make you better being a mindful resistor. And by the way, I think of resistance as being to kind of Trumpism more than Trump. In fact, I think kind of focusing a little less on Trump the person and more on, like, A, what he's doing, B, what parts of human nature he arouses, and C, the structural forces that gave rise to him to begin with. I think that's the productive focus.
So you're saying it should be focused on people like me, not on Trump?
Well,
I'm for a sane Donald Trump, and you're saying even the sane Donald Trump has to be resisted.
No, that's not what I mean so much. I mean, in fact, I encourage a clear and sober look at significant policy questions being raised, and I think immigration is a serious policy question. I think trade is a serious policy question. And one thing I mean by mindful resistance is paying enough attention to these things to come up with an alternative, so that a guy like Trump is not the only game in town for people who have certain grievances.
I can see two problems with this theory right now.
Yeah.
One is there's a financial incentive on the web for people to be as extreme and emotional and overreacting as possible.
Totally.
Because that's how they make their money and get their hits.
And there's
Second, the Democrats will never come up with a sober alternative to immigration because they have decided that demography is their future, and they will go with the easy route, which is trying to appeal to the Latino Hispanic vote by being not only for amnesty but also against any kind of enforcement.
Well,
so they will abandon the sensible position that you argue.
To take your points in order, there is a financial incentive to overreacting. I've argued before that newspapers should not say in headlines on reported coverage that Trump is lying unless they actually know what was going on inside his head and know that he was aware that what he was saying was untrue. And with Trump, I think you never know. And in any event, I think when supposedly straight news seems so clearly editorializing, that just reaffirms the sense among Trump supporters that the media is out to get him and so on. So I think websites and news outlets have a financial incentive, if they want traffic, to cater to the emotions of anti-Trumpists. I also think just people on social media have the incentive. I mean, I could get more retweets if I would play that game more. I mean, I do tweet sarcastic things about Trump, but I've really kind of quit playing the outrage game, and I could get more retweets if I played it. But that's why I'm trying to do this. I'm going to try to make the case for mindful resistance, like why it is not in the interest of people who really oppose what Trump represents to overreact to what he does. And I'm not saying it's an easy call, because when he does violate significant norms, like with the Boy Scout thing, I don't think you can just sit there and say nothing. I mean, you have to note, it has to be noted that this is new and it's bad. And
well, what was so terrible about the Boy Scout thing? Explain to me again. I didn't hear the speech.
It's just, I forget the details of the speech. It's just like using an occasion. I mean, the Boy Scouts is an institution that is supposed to be nonpartisan. And for a president to show up and do the usual Trump thing, bragging about this and that, and didn't even diss Hillary, and just the usual. I mean, it's just totally inappropriate. And now I think the Hitler Youth comparisons were overdrawn. That's a good example of overreacting. At the same time, there was something just a little creepy about him. I gather that some of the Boy Scouts started chanting and so on. And the way this would work, if he kept it up, is liberals would quit putting their kids in the Boy Scouts, and increasingly the Boy Scouts would become a partisan organization, But I'm just saying, he does stuff all the time that violate norms, and it's not an easy call as to how you should react, because I don't think you should let them pass without remark. But at the same time, I do think that you see various kinds of overreaction to Trump, at least overreaction in the sense that it reinforces support in his base. And it doesn't accomplish much else.
Right. So who is doing it right in your perspective?
There are some people like, Brendan Nyhan, this political scientist at Dartmouth. I had him on, and he's good at. You should follow him. He's clearly anti-Trump, but he actually tries to call out sometimes, like when people are spreading fake anti-Trump news, or not. When there's some degree of misrepresentation of what Trump did, or whatever. He's good. Look, there aren't many, but that's why you start. That's why you try to start something.
Okay, so what do people who agree with you have to do?
For starters, they have to go to mindfulresistance.net, where I think by the time we post this video, there will actually be something. You shouldn't go there now because there's nothing.
Okay.
But we're gonna start with like a weekly newsletter. We may do other things, maybe ultimately like a podcast devoted to this, but people can sign up for the newsletter, which will probably start in, a few weeks. We'll have the start date on the website. And then, I don't know where we'll go. We'll see where it goes. You can imagine various things. Like if in the newsletter you call attention to articles that you think treated this whole issue soberly or constructively on this way, and that can include like assessing the connection between trade and jobs in the Midwest. It could just be raw material for good analysis of what the actual problem here is. It could be notably sober treatment of something Trump did that was outrageous but shouldn't be overstated. Who knows? But so we'll try to send around in the newsletter links to resources that we think are worth spreading, encourage people to spread them, maybe including some tweets that we think, like maybe some by Brendan Nyhan.
It's much more useful if you say who you're against, so I think you should name and shame the overreactors.
Yeah, it's a fine line. Because the danger here is that you'll get dismissed as a scold. I see media stuff all the time that I think is, is just not well done. I'm sure you notice, being an actual Trump supporter, you must notice it all the time. Just kind of overly casual assertions in reported stories, right?
Oh, of course, yes.
Look, you want me to name and shame? There was a piece by Maggie Haberman, whom you know, right?
Oh, I don't know her, but I follow her.
She's famous in the New York Times. And there was a series of paragraphs where Trump said things. She reported what he said, and then at the end she just said, "This is not true." Now, sometimes you can say that. The truth is, even that is not the way it's traditionally done in reporting. The way it's traditionally done in reporting is to quote someone who cites the fact that contradicts what is said. But she would just say, "This is not true." And one of those was when Trump said something like, one of the things she said was not true was when Trump said something like, I think the phrase was totally ignored. He said, the media totally ignored that story. And Haberman says, this is not true. Well, wait a second. When somebody says the media totally ignored something, they don't literally mean, you can't refute them by showing one case where somebody covered it. By totally ignored, what they mean, that's a hyperbolic way of saying they underplayed it. So
what
that's
was he talking about? What story was he talking about?
I don't know. You'd have to go back and look. But my point is...
But how long ago was this? Was it yesterday or a month ago?
No, it was about a month ago. But
okay.
the point is, that is clearly a statement he made that is simply not amenable to the kind of fact-checking that other statements are amenable to. And there was a time when the New York Times, where no New York Times reporter would have been that sloppy. Trump has changed the rules. It's not just the New York Times. You know,
I totally agree. I'm not sure that how much of their copy New York Times reporters write versus how much is inserted by their editors.
That's an interesting question.
If you follow Maggie Haberman's Twitter feed, she doesn't make assertions like that.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure she had to sign off on it. They didn't stick it in.
I'm sure she had to sign off on it, yes. But you know,
now I don't have the piece with me. I hope I didn't misquote anything, but
I agree. That sort of stuff happens all the time.
Well, that kind of thing, I haven't seen that often, but I see in both the Washington Post and the New York Times, I just see a lot of super casual stuff.
Well, I think the phase where the media said, damn it, we're going to call a lie, and aren't we great? That phase has sort of passed, and now we're into another phase, which is just hysterically react to everything Trump does.
Well, I'm all for pointing out when he says something untrue, which he does all the time. I'm, you know, and again, I don't want to, I mean, what I'm talking about is, it's much broader than that. I mean, you know, the word mindful in plain English, and this is really a lot of what was meant to be evoked by the term when the decision was made to translate this ancient Buddhist term as mindfulness. It means like attentive, aware of all relevant factors, careful. That's what I mean. And I mean not governed by emotional reaction. And look, you know me, I'm obviously a very emotionally reactive person. So I'm not in a position to complain about that, per se. But I just think we should all try not to do Trump the favor of exacerbating polarization, because I think polarization is his friend.
Well, all that makes sense. The way mindfulness is presented to me, it's the opposite of daydreaming. And since I like daydreaming, I resist it.
Well, mindfulness is not daydreaming. I mean, the reason the two are cast in opposition is because usually the first thing you have to overcome if you sit down and try to do mindfulness meditation is the fact that your mind is naturally wandering. I mean, if you close your eye, you know, it doesn't have any task to perform. You're not playing a sport. You're not reading a novel. It doesn't have anything to do. So it wanders. You daydream. That's what the mind naturally does. And mindfulness is not that. And you have to get away from that. I wouldn't say that the best definition of it is as the opposite. I mean, you know, mindfulness, it can go very deep. I mean, mindfulness meditation, and fundamentally transform your consciousness. I mean, sometimes at the end of a 1-week retreat, you feel very, very different than you did before. Much less enslaved by emotions, much more appreciative of beauty, much less judgmental about people, or at least much less casually, reactively judgmental, and so on. So I don't know. I have only a vague idea of where I'm going to try to go with this, but we're going to try to do something with it.
You should get press for it.
Well, we'll see. First, we have to actually get this URL to be something where if you go there, something shows up, which, as we speak, has not happened. This is a soft... What?
Get Jonathan Chait to denounce it, saying we need emotion and hyperbole in the anti-Trump case.
Actually, I was thinking about having Jonathan on Blogging Heads. John, as we call him.
Go ahead.
I mean, he would have a good civil argument about this.
Yeah, no, I think he'd be a good person to have on.
Yeah. But you agree that he would be anti-mindfulness on this?
Well, he's always writing pieces saying, yes, I hate Bush. What's wrong with that? So I would think he would be, and his contrarian instincts would lead him to be in the opposite camp.
Can you give me a specific example where you think overreaction helped Trump?
I probably can. Maybe, right off the bat. I mean, name a horrible thing Trump did, and I'll tell you.
Well, I was kind of. I think the Mika tweet is an interesting thing where that just seems like superficially the Mika tweet seems like all downside, but I think it actually, and I'm not saying it was engineered to do this. I mean, you never know with Trump, crazy or crazy like a fox, but it actually accomplished a couple of things for him, I think.
What did it accomplish?
Well, I think two things, and I don't know if this, again, was on purpose, but that same day there was a potentially damaging Wall Street Journal piece. It was the piece about how there was a guy who died in the spring or something, but who was apparently affiliated, loosely, but in fact affiliated with the Trump campaign, who was out shopping for stolen Hillary emails and was manifestly willing to do business with the Russians. Now, that piece came out a few hours, I think, after the Mika tweet, but the White House was quoted as not commenting in the piece. So they may have known it was coming that afternoon. And in any event, it got way less press than it would have gotten had it not been for the Mika tweet. The other thing is the Mika tweet, I think you tell me, you're more conversant in the right-wing echo chamber than I am, but I think in the right-wing echo chamber, the Mika tweet became an occasion to recount all the horrible things Joe and Mika had said about Trump and drive home how anti-Trump the media is.
Well, that definitely happened, and it's made more Joe a sort of it discredited anything he has to say about Trump among Trump's constituency. Not that they weren't onto him before. I mean, a couple things you learn from being on Twitter. One is your readers are much better informed than you are, so you're constantly saying something, and then they will be much more familiar with the record. And they also watch cable TV, and I don't watch cable TV. The second thing is they're much more slavishly. There are many more of them who slavishly follow everything Trump says, and think, the classic example is Sessions. About half my Twitter feed is now turned against Sessions because Trump is taunting Sessions. The other half are appalled by Trump.
Right.
So he has to worry about that. But the anti-Sessions, whatever, Trump is against Sessions. Sessions betrayed him, et cetera, et cetera. That faction is bigger than I thought it would be, and so those people are now they're locked into Morning Joe.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right about that.
Yeah, well, I think that would be part of mindful resistance. Would just be in cases like that. I mean, I don't want there to be a lot of scolding at all. In fact, the kind of the thing I said about Maggie Haberman or whatever it was, I don't want to do like a lot of that kind of preaching. But I think making people aware of how things are playing in Trump land and how information is being processed there. Like when you're being outraged by the Mika tweet, what's happening there? They're being outraged by the things Mika has said. That's just useful information.
About that. I don't think that story that you think Trump was preempting was that big a story.
What's interesting is I'm not sure it was inherently that big. I think it was not nothing. It was interesting, but the very dynamic we're discussing, which is that opponents of Trump tend to make a pretty big deal out of stories like that, I think ensures that it would have gotten a lot more play had. I think it's not nothing. I think.
Okay.
But because the other thing in it, if I'm recalling correctly, was that there was a part two to it, which was that I shouldn't get into it, but I think it involved Flynn. I think there was evidence from Russian wiretaps of Russian conversation or something, that the Russians seemed to be under the impression that Flynn was willing to play ball, or they were trying to market emails to Flynn himself, something like that. So it had a number of dimensions to it, but I'm not
saying it wasn't an interesting story. It doesn't seem like a huge bombshell.
But I think it's an interesting exercise to always go, okay, this outrageous thing, is there a chance that it actually works in Trump's favor, or our reaction to it does in ways that might not be immediately apparent?
Right, but there are people who argue that the war with Morning Joe and Mika was counterproductive because it drew attention away from his war with CNN, which he was winning at the time, and it sort of opened up a new front. And in fact, he then went back to CNN in a couple of days later.
I would want to entertain that scenario as well. I mean, I think one kind of criticism the approach I'm advocating would be that it's unilateral disarmament. It's like, wait a second, Trump's base is totally reactive, to news, totally enslaved by emotional reactions, and if we are not, then we are just unilaterally disarming them. We have to match their rage, and I think you do have to preserve your ideological passion and motivation, but I claim that you can actually outsmart the opposition by not being too reactive.
Well, but that's an argument you should have with somebody, not me.
Of course. Besides, we've talked for a long time. But the main thing is, I just want to say, I want the focus to be on the bigger picture. The forces at work that allowed Trump to come to power, and that sustain him. And, it's not an anti-Trump initiative per se. Although, clearly I'm not a fan. Anyway, that's the idea.
You may be trapped in the sensible middle.
Well, there is that. But I don't, it's like, one thing I'm not doing is the no labels thing, right? I'm not doing that. Remember no labels?
Yes, because no labels pretended to be non-ideological?
Well, it almost, yeah, exactly. It acted as if you can have a set of policies that are not ideological, or you can convene these people who will just find the reasonable policies, and they'll, it won't be an ideological exercise. I just, I have an ideology. Trump's ethno-nationalism, I think, is bad. I'm against it. That's an ideology. People who think it's good will not be part of the mindful resistance or any resistance.
Okay. Well, anyway, it sounds like a worthy endeavor.
Can I sign you up, Mickey?
Let me think about that.
I think you're closer than you realize to jumping ship.
What's this jumping ship?
You're right. It doesn't matter, because the only reason you'll jump ship is if he betrays the ideology that I personally oppose anyway. You are ideologically beyond salvation, I admit.
If he fires Sessions and Jared announces that they're doing the John McCain Memorial Comprehensive Immigration Reform, and that he lobbies for passing the same amnesty
bill. You are
bill
thinking ahead, aren't you?
Sessions opposed. I will no longer be in his camp.
Yeah. No, you are. No, I agree.
Perilously close to happening.
I think we are converging on the fact, we agree on the fact that you are beyond salvation. Is that a fair way to put it? Because no. even if you jump Trump ship, it's just because Trump is not true to Trumpism. Well, now we shouldn't use the word Trumpism, because that means different things, all of which I dislike. But
you think control of the borders is an essential element of Trumpism that you oppose?
It's an interesting question what Trumpism means, because it could mean either like it could mean nativism, it could mean relatedly, the immigration policies that are sometimes associated with nativism. It could mean ethno-national, it could mean protectionism, it could mean those policy things. It could also mean the things that Trump brings kind of distinctively, like just in other words, you could pursue these policies and not be doing all these things that get Trump accused of being a fascist, right?
Right.
So you could say, well, no, by Trumpism we mean the fascist part. Or you could say, no, we mean the part that will definitely still be a political force in America when Trump leaves the scene. Whether or not it assumes this a particularly pernicious kind of incipiently fascistic form.
But my question is control of the borders inherently a part of Trumpism that you would oppose?
Now, I don't actually. I don't actually myself. I mean, I think immigration is something that needs to be discussed, and I don't. I've never been a pure open borders, like libertarian, guy who's like there should be no immigration restrictions, because as I've told you before, any country can only absorb change so fast, and so I'm not against any restrictions at all. I will say I don't like the emerging position among people who are rethinking this on the left and among some on the right, well, probably increasingly including Trump, which is, well, no, we just exclude the low-income people, and if you're rich enough, you can immigrate to the United States. I don't like that. I'd rather see across-the-board restriction than that.
Right, but the essential part of immigration control is we control who comes in, and we can decide democratically who to let in. We can decide to let in high skilled, we can decide to let in low skilled, but we have enough control that our decision will stick.
Well, and, I don't.
The question is that so inherently toxic that the mindful resistors will resist that?
I don't consider. I mean, in general, what I would encourage, just free and open discussion of any legitimate policy questions. It's like, Peter Beinart is rethinking immigration, right? I haven't read his stuff, but he's a liberal who's calling for Democrats to rethink immigration. Fine, let's have that discussion. I don't, and again, it's like on trade. No, untrammeled trade is not part of what I'm seeing as mindful resistance. No. Now, my own view on trade.
I'm just confused as to what are the non-crazy elements of Trumpism that you would never.
It is not an extensively ideological platform. Period. It's just saying, let's calm down and look at the entire thing as clearly as possible, and not feed the manifestly pernicious parts of Trumpism. And by manifestly pernicious, I mean, the things like this thing he did where this horrible thing he said about, what was it? It was like illegal immigrants. He said they cut up women chunk by. What was this? You saw this, right?
He was talking about MS-13, the I think it's Central American gang that started in Los Angeles, then migrated to Central America, and then came back. And they are pretty vicious, and cops routinely talk about them as animals. I agree that that's dehumanizing, but it's not just Trump.
Well, then to take another example, when he says, they rape our women and some of them are good people. I mean, that whole kind of his appeal to fear and to bigotry, and that's the kind of thing I want to disempower.
There was a very sort of shocking article by somebody who was involved in a human rights pro-refugee groups about the Afghan crime wave in Europe, and she was very explicit about saying she was shocked that a lot of rapes and crimes, etc., were done by Afghan men. She didn't say Muslim men. She didn't say Syrians. She said Afghans. Are you saying that sort of argument is beyond the pale because it encourages differences between ethnicities and differential crime rates?
I'd have to see what she said. I would say that I think certain ugly human impulses are reliably enough evoked that in certain realms you need to be very careful about how you speak. And so when
cultures are different, and you can't say that different cultures have no consequences.
No, I guess you can't. I don't know what exactly you mean by that, but I'm just saying
if there's a misogynist culture that believes in honor killings and subordination of women, you can't say that they are the same as a non-misogynist culture that doesn't believe in those things. And if you rule out making that contrast,
you
you're ruling
can't.
out a whole realm of reality.
You can't. But on the other hand, if you know that, say, you're talking to a bunch of people who have a totally warped conception of, like, what Sharia law is and its actual, prevalence in the United States and the actual chances that it could ever get anywhere in the United States in any kind of way that would be seriously unfortunate. Selectively characterizing what Sharia means in certain places is something that I don't approve of. No, I think you should be mindful of the environment you're speaking in and what kinds of buttons what you're saying pushes. I'm just saying, I think you can say things that are technically true within a certain frame, but they're just so clearly unproductive and so not conducive to rational reaction that the responsible person doesn't get into them in that environment, much less try to build a whole political power base on them, which is what Trump has done. I mean, Mickey, do you deny that Trump systematically appealed to ugly human impulses, exaggerated the extent to which we should fear certain things, at least, in order to get elected? Do you deny that?
There was exaggeration, but on the other, he was counteracting a near universal cover-up of the connection of crimes committed by immigrants, so much so that there's really no reliable statistics on this. And I think I'm sort of getting off the mindful boat. Why isn't the if people say Sharia law is horrible, why isn't the response to make the argument you just made, which is Sharia law is not that bad, it helps this and this and this. Fine. You're distorting it, as opposed to saying shut up, you shouldn't have mentioned it in the first place.
I didn't say that. I said if you're at a rally and people are virtually have are revved up and they're like Trump supporters and they respond to kind of classic Trump tropes about Islam and so on, I think it's irresponsible to present selective information that only fires them up more, which Trump does.
I don't think he did that much.
Oh, come on.
I don't know. I went to one Trump rally. How many did you go to?
I saw you couldn't turn on TV without seeing one.
That's true, but it seemed to me that the main effect of what he said was that I don't abide by.
Do you not think? I mean, we've gone on too long.
You can't bring up cultural differences to begin with.
I
think we've crossed that bridge. I think we have to have a discussion about cultural differences, and that ultimately it will be a good thing.
We have them all the time. I mean, it's not.
We have them all the time in
private.
It's just in public you can't talk about it without people saying, "Oh, you're saying that cultures are different. We're all human beings. We all have the same rights." Blah 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 blah.
Well, we do all have the same rights, right?
No, I understand, but the point is that Trump brought a lot of what the private barbershop conversation was into the public sphere, and in general, that's a good thing.
So, who was it who tweeted? Was it Michael Flynn who tweeted, "You should fear Muslims"?
It could have been his son, but I think
no, it was an actual Trump appointee. It was an actual Trump appointee. It may even be the Homeland Security guy. It was an actual Trump appointee. Do you think it's bad to appoint?
I guarantee you, it wasn't General Kelly.
Kelly said some pretty crazy stuff. But do you think? Look, Trump. I'm pretty sure an actual Trump appointee. At one point, Trump said you should fear Muslims. Do you think it's bad to appoint someone who says that?
I think that's a silly thing to say.
That wasn't the question. Do you think it's bad for the president to appoint someone who says something so A, stupid, and B, so clearly likely to bring out the worst in people and lead to horrible things?
If what he means is you should fear Muslims, in that if you let in 1 million of them, 1,000 of them are going to be radical Muslim terrorists, that's not a crazy thing to say.
What he meant was left to the imagination. All he said, as I recall, it was like I think it was like a literal tweet. You should fear Muslims. And again, the question is simple. Should Trump or should Trump not appoint someone who has tweeted that?
I would give him a chance to clarify.
Oh.
It seems to me
he had a chance to clarify at the time, Mickey.
It's not Twitter is 140 characters. It's not a
Well, if you're gonna say something that's going to be widely misconstrued at 140 characters, don't say it. Twitter's not the place.
It's not a point in its favor. I just don't think it's a deal breaker. It probably might end up being a deal breaker if you force him to clarify. We obviously need to get baseball hats made up, make America mindful again.
Nicky, you are right. You are not on board for the mindfulness thing. I mean, here's the thing. You have some reasonable arguments about immigration, and then you go say something like this, that it's fine for Trump to appoint someone who tweets, we should fear Muslims. Why do you do that?
I didn't say that. I said it wasn't. It's not 100% disqualification. I'm in favor of giving people
I really don't get.
clarify.
I really don't get why. I don't know.
There are things you could tweet that would, be what Malcolm Gladwell calls a disqualifying statement.
What would that be in your book?
I think that's a probably disqualifying statement. I just think it might be better to say to the guy, what do you really mean by that? And if he really means we should fear the 1% of Muslims who might do us harm, and that's higher than 1% of Christians, I'm not sure that that's a disqualifying statement.
He didn't say that. I mean, I'm not even sure the wisdom.
I don't know what he said. I haven't.
No, it was pretty straightforward. It was literally there. It's a fair paraphrase of the tweet. It was just like, we should, you're damn right. You should fear Muslims.
If somebody says our enemy is Islam in all its forms, that's probably a disqualifying. That person probably shouldn't be in the Trump administration.
Okay.
But you don't like my idea for a baseball hat.
Mama?
Yeah, except I don't know about the again part. Was America ever mindful?
No, so it has to be ma'am. That's not going to work. So anyway,
stick with mama and have it be a joke.
That's good guidance. So what else is left? We've been talking. Is this a new record?
I don't know. I've lost track of time. I'm being so mindful.
I'm going to be on this Partially Examined Life podcast. They go on for like 3 hours sometimes.
There seems to be no limit for podcasts. People seem to like them the longer the better, and that seems insane to me. That's why I've never listened to podcasts. I like things short and
sweet. A lot of people, the people at Panoply have the philosophy that like half an hour max, I think.
Really? Oh, that's a good philosophy.
Well, I don't think it's always controlling in the case of all their client podcasts, but that's the view you get there. Maybe we should test it and just keep talking forever, and then at the end offer $100 to anybody who emails you.
Meanwhile, while we've been talking, the entire Trump administration has probably turned over a couple of times.
What has happened?
I don't know.
This will probably be posted tomorrow.
Okay. Well, anyway, we've covered the topics.
Well, I'm disappointed that you're not going to. Well, it's not so much that you're going to not going to sign up for Mindful Resistance, although that's true. It's also that our membership committee might raise questions about your credentials.
Well, I think you should. You have to keep people out, in order to cement the identity of the people who are in.
Nah, it's not that kind of thing right now. We're just going to try to put together a newsletter. People should go to mindfulresistance.net and sign up. And I regret if at any point I let my emotions get the better of me, which I've clearly done. I regret that. That's part of the Mindful Resistance pledge.
Okay, well.
Every night you say, I regret if I have in any way been a slave of my emotions.
Well, I'll sign up, but it might just be to spy on you. You don't know.
Okay. So you'll know what's coming out in the newsletters?
Right. So if I know that there's some crazy mindfulness coming down the pike, I can counteract it.
Yeah. I mean, I want to emphasize this isn't something just for like Buddhists, right? It'll be mainly non, although I do think mindfulness meditation could save the world if everyone did it. Not because it would, fill us all with brotherly love. It would just make people more calm and rational. We have better foreign policy, better anti-Trumpism, everything.
Okay. I'll think about it.
Okay. Well, I wish you well in all of your endeavors except for political ones.
Thank you.
This is
I appreciate it.
Yours mindfully. I don't know what we need a symbol. Yours mindfully.
Okay, well, the good.
Yours mindfully.
You have some PR work cut out for you.
I know, we have a lot. It's early days.
When does your book go on sale, by the way?
August 8th.
Okay.
All right.
I'll be there.
Godspeed.
Okay.
See ya.